Us. All right. So the movie today, we're looking at a classic. I do think it's a classic, directed by my old boss at Warner Brothers, John Milius, Red Dawn.
What's going on here, my friend?
This is the emergency broadcast system. We are under attack by conventional forces of the Russian army. It is believed the lead waves were disguised as commercial charter flights. Communications have broken down with other parts of the country. Large areas of the Midwest may have been overrun.
They know who all of you are. They're looking for you.
You're 40 miles behind enemy lines.
I just want to go home. They took a lot of people away.
Where's my dad, Mr. Eckert?
One of us loves somebody, Andy. We're gonna die before it happens.
They're gonna kill us! All of us!
So why should we be different?
Because we live here!
Not bad for a bunch of kids, huh?
Mama'd be real proud.
Definitely a classic, yeah. One that everybody knows. Had to have a remake done of it, and obviously that did not quite compare to the original. So yeah, just and I'm going to tell you, even before we jump into this, Ethan, one thing I did just in advance of this show was, having loved the movie way back in the day, and then on revisits, I just read the entire screenplay. So kind of interesting seeing the source material.
You told me that, and I was actually envious of you being able to do that because, I've never read the script. I talked to Milius about the movie when I was working in his office, but I never read the script. I never saw the remake. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I'm not that much into self-punishment, but I was curious about how the script flowed because I would ask Milius things like, he didn't actually have a copy of Red Dawn in his office. Surprisingly, he had copies of everything. Mostly copies of movies he wanted to produce: Sante Raid, Daniel Boone, Manila John, based on John Basilone from World War II. He had those projects ready to go, but I never saw a Red Dawn script. So I'm actually very envious. What did you learn reading the script? How did it flow?
I got to tell you, having read many scripts, and written some myself, I'd never seen one formatted quite like this. I mean, this was the shooting script, and yet it just had it had an enormous amount of scenes. Like it, in a 110-page script, there was the final scene was number 375. Oh no, what am I saying? 424. So 424 delineated scenes, and
Wow.
a lot of they didn't start off with normal slug lines like exterior, Ethan's place, day. They just say sometimes it has a place like street. Other times it just says close Jed, as if it's a shot, and then it goes into the stage or the action items and the dialogue. So that alone was interesting. I mean, it read kind of in a cinematic way, So that was kind of cool, yeah. But also the other thing that I just got to bring up, and we'll come back to it. There's a major character in this so-called shooting script, and this is apparently Milius's script, like that someone scanned. That's not actually in the movie. Like the lead female role ahead of Leah Thompson and Jennifer Grey's characters.
Both Grey and Thompson are great in it, actually, and Thompson's gone on to be a pretty incredible director. But it's funny. I want to talk about this deleted character because I knew nothing about it till you reported it. But I do love that Milius always thinks in cinematic terms. Even in his own scripts, he can break a format because it's what he wants to get to you through the screen. And I love that about him. It's this original draft. The original idea was Kevin Reynolds, Prince of Thieves fame, who I've also met when I was at Warner Brothers. But this the final product reeks of Milius, and so much so that I think people at the time had an opinion of the film based on what their opinion was of Milius. And if you saw him as an extremist, then this movie was full of extremists. But I will say this out of the gate before we deep dive this. If there was a movie for me that was so perfect within the time it hit, it was this. There was nothing better. I mean, look at the pieces to this. Great casting. They were characters just a little older than us at the time, so we identified. It was against the great Soviet boogeyman, right? So we had our enemy cut out right in front of us, target sighted, and then you have this brilliant soundtrack that Basil put together, and just like the whole thing worked. And the action sequences are actually pretty good. Now, I've heard people make arguments about it feeling disjointed, if like things were cut. It doesn't feel that way to me. To me, it feels pretty tight.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I agree. Certainly about the timing. Talk about a movie that was right for the moment, especially right now that we're in Olympic season in 2024, all these years later. But you got to remember, this came out, when the first of all the U.S. Boycotted the Soviet Union Olympics in 19. And then the U.S. boycotted, or the Soviets boycotted the American ones. So all of these things are playing out, on the world stage. And of course, it's the middle of the Reagan years. And what we didn't know, the coming up on the collapse of the Soviet Union. Of course, we also didn't know there's a guy named Vlad Putin who was going to bring it all back. But that happens a few decades later. But all of these things happen in real life at the same time as this coming out. So is it extreme? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot going on and there's a lot of intense stuff, particularly for a movie, featuring a bunch of kids. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of people who felt that it resonated more so than in some of the, some of the ridiculous conspiracy theories we hear now. Like, I mean, that for people, they thought, well, this was still the Cold War, right? So, and just became less cold this thing.
NMOSD is a disease that can blind you, paralyze you, or kill you. But the good news is doctors seem to think they're very close to a cure. They also seem to think that a cure for NMOSD will be a cure for cancer. So that's a two-for-one that I can't ignore. And if you're like me, you would donate today to the Gothy Jackson Foundation. My name is Steve Surgic, and I approve this message.